Hyperinflation fears grow. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee and let's have a look at this article from Yahoo Finance, which is talking about, concerns regarding hyperinflation. So let's look at this one because a lot of people are worried that we're going to be heading into hyperinflation. I mean, the Reserve Bank, the Fed, is generating money faster than it ever has throughout all of history. But if we think back and we look at the historical examples for hyperinflation, they're all from countries where you didn't really want the currency, where right now, people still want the USD. They always want it. There's still demand for it around the entire world. So let's have a look at this take. For more than a decade, economists in the developed world have been left wondering, whatever happened to inflation? Now it's become fashionable in some circles to predict hyperinflation. Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter and payment technology firm Square, drew scorn last week for doing just that. Well, if you look at we've had a huge stock market rise and Twitter's not really done much, has it, compared to some of the other tech companies? Hyperinflation is going to change everything. It's happening. The well-known cryptocurrency advocate claimed. It will happen in the US soon, and so the world. Michael Burry, the money manager immortalized in Michael Lewis's Big Short this year, compared the United States to the Weimar Republic in Germany in early 1920s, while conservative politicians running for US Senate tweet as if hyperinflation is already here. While inflation has shown serious signs of life, hyperinflation is tantamount to complete social political collapse. We are nowhere near hyperinflation. Not at all. It just seems like 3% inflation. It just seems so painful to us because we've had so little inflation for a while. So here's why you absolutely shouldn't expect it to happen. So hyperinflation occurs when price increases in an economy accelerate rapidly and spiral out of control. We're probably seeing that in some crypto sectors. Quickly reducing the buying power of the currency to make it practically worthless. Hyperinflation is defined pretty rigorously. It's a bit pedantic, but hyperinflation is prices rising by more than 50% per month. Associate Professor William Coleman from the ANU School of Economics told Yahoo Finance. I mean, that's pretty extreme. Here we go, in Berlin, banknotes. Yeah. We're not seeing a repeat of Berlin. The global situation isn't the same. Who would have wanted the bloody German Deutschmark back then? No one. Hyperinflation typically comes about when there is widespread political unrest and when governments try to print their way out of massive government debts. The root of hyperinflation is political collapse, Coleman said. The risk of hyperinflation in the short to medium term in the developed world is zero. So what countries have experienced hyperinflation? There have been a handful of instances where countries have been swamped by hyperinflation in the past 100 years. Germany in the early 1920s is among the most well-known examples, which led to the turmoil of the time, helping lead rise to a certain political character. China in the 1940s was forced to introduce a new currency after an explosion of hyperinflation during the later years of the Civil War. In June 1948, a sack of rice cost 6.7 million yuan. Within a few weeks, the price had reached 63 million. There you go. Hungary, in the post-World War II period, holds the record for the most extreme monthly inflation rate ever at a mind-boggling 41.9 quadrillion % in July 1946. That meant prices doubled every 15 hours. Yugoslavia, in the end of 1990, suffered hyperinflation, as did Zimbabwe more than a decade later. Argentina and Brazil have also grappled with hyperinflation. Well, all these very well-managed countries that we're seeing here. Venezuela is still dealing with the scars of hyperinflation. There seems to be a trend in a lot of these countries, isn't it? Rampant economic intervention by the state. I wonder. It declared a state of emergency in 2016 when the yearly inflation rate hit 800%. 2 years later, it was estimated at 80,000%. Like others before them, the country introduced a new currency last month. These are all societies in civil war or on the verge of civil war, Common said. That's when hyperinflation breaks out. So what is happening with inflation? In Australia, the Consumer Price Index, one measure of inflation, saw prices rise 0.8% in the September quarter, according to data released last week from the ABS. In the past 12 months, consumer prices have risen by 3%, driven by a leap in petrol and property prices. That's not surprising, given that inflation was starting off quite a low base and the economy is picking up after being shut down for long periods, Professor Ken Fox of UNSW School of Business told Yahoo Finance. Spurred on by supply chain disruptions during the pandemic, the expectations of price rises among Aussie consumers spiked a 7-year high last week. However, Fox believes some of the inflationary pressure will largely be transitory as people come out of lockdown and shift from buying physical products like exercise equipment to services. Services typically don't have the supply chain issue that physical goods have, he explained. Whether the recent uptick in inflation seen in many developed countries is transitory or not is the subject of fierce debate right now, but the Reserve Bank of Australia has been firmly in the transitory camp to date. So, is our understanding of inflation broken? Well, one might be critical of what's missing from the inflation measures, particularly when it comes to housing. Economists still don't have a rock-solid understanding of inflation. The monetary theory of inflation asserts that growth in the monetary supply is the cause of inflation, but with governments injecting trillions into the economy since the GFC with little inflation to show for it, the theory has fallen on hard times. Well, it depends. Where's that inflation manifesting? My stocks are doing pretty well. I wonder, where would it manifest in Australia? Perhaps property? Maybe. How's that going? It's a theory that has spectacularly not worked over the past 14 years. We've been flooded with money since 2008, and there's barely been any inflation until the past year, Coleman said. So the old theories about connecting money to inflation aren't really working, but there's no alternative theory to go on. Fox believes it's simply a matter of scale. If you print enough, then you'll get hyperinflation, but we're not anywhere near close to that in any of the industrialized countries, he said. One thing that could keep inflation around for a little longer is a change in expectations among consumers, leading them to spend their money more quickly before it loses purchasing power. The key thing that could drive inflation is expectations, Coleman said. As soon as people expect it won't be transitory, then it won't be transitory. But wage growth would need to come along for the ride, and that continues to be sluggish at around 1.7% in Australia. Well, let's have a bit of a talk about this one. I don't think we're going to see hyperinflation at all, guys. I can't see it happening. There's a lot of people that are pushing that narrative, that are, think it will manifest, but we'll have to just keep an eye on everything that's going on here around the world. The scenarios that have led to hyperinflation are not similar to what we're seeing here. We're not facing a situation where the United States is creating a currency that no one wants. Everyone wants USD. Entire parts of the global economy are still dependent on USD, even with China introducing a gold-backed digital yuan. That's not going to replace the USD, guys. It will not. We're not going to see hyperinflation. Sure, we'll get inflation. Sure, it may not be as transitory as people expect, but we're not going to see 50% decline in purchasing power in a month. That's a completely different ballgame. What do you think? Hey, housing, 30% a year, and we're going crazy. Could you imagine 50% a month? Oh boy, people would love it. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching this episode. I want you to have a look at this other episode I did on the HeiseSays Realpolitik channel discussing company directors requiring digital IDs. Do you think it's a good thing or is it a bad thing that they'll, hopefully stop phoenixing? Anyway, take care and I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.